here is the BMW X7, the first of its kind. It's the biggest, most luxurious SUV in BMW's range. In the world of luxury SUVs, you've got the Rolls-Royce Cullinan, the Bentley Bentayga, and then this. So let's see how this car behaves on Malaysian roads, just how big and practical its 7-seater interior is, and how different is it compared to the smaller and cheaper BMW X5. Find out all that and more in this video. There is the small matter of pricing. This here goes for 888,800 ringgit, or 826,000 with this year's SST exemptions. Now that's a little bit less than the comparable Mercedes-Benz GLS and Range Rover, but within BMW's own SUV range, it's a monumental leap up compared to the X5. Now this is a situation that is unique to the Malaysian market because last year we had the X540i and that went for 620,000 ringgit. So this car is about 40% more than that one. I think that's fair, and that is a real look at how this car is positioned above the X5. But now that we have the X545i with all its EEV tax breaks at 440,000 ringgit, this is now a full 100% more expensive. It's double the price of the X5, even though this is clearly not double the car. But I guess those in the market wouldn't really be bothered by this fact. I mean, you still want to buy a big bungalow house, even if it costs twice as much as a terrace house. You still want to splurge on a business class ticket or a first class ticket, even though it gets you in the same time as a cattle class ticket for the fraction of the price. There are levels to this game, and if you're there, you're there. If you're complaining it's too expensive, I guess you're not. But what that buys you is sheer size, because in terms of dimensions, this is significantly bigger than the X5 it's based on. It measures over 5.1 meters long, over 230 millimeters longer, and the wheelbase is 3.1 meters long, 130 millimeters up compared to the X5. Also significant is the increase in height from 1.7 to 1.8 meters high. All in all, this is a massive car, and it just about fits in a typical Malaysian car park bay. Another big differentiator between these cars is in the way they look. The smaller car is of course designed with a much more athletic and more mainstream appeal, while this is in a whole different ballgame. BMW says this is the 7 series of SUVs, and as cliched as that sounds, that's actually a pretty good way of describing how it looks. It's very simple, it's very sleek, and it screams opulence instead of sportiness, and I think it works for this big car. Key to that look are these absolutely massive kidney grilles, which is the biggest ever fitted on a BMW. Now this is a direct response to demands from the American and China markets asking for bigger BMW cars to have more presence on the road. Now I wouldn't call this car pretty or beautiful by any measure, but I guess if you see one, you'd definitely notice it, and for BMW, that's job well done. Fun fact, if you take this emblem over there and try to put it on your own BMW cars, it just wouldn't fit, because this is an oversized badge made specifically for the X7 to fit the larger grille. Visually, you're made to think that the X7 is wider than the X5, even though it's not. They are both virtually identical when it comes to width. You are made to think that by these horizontal cues down below here, and of course these very slim lights that lead into the kidney grills. These, by the way, are the top of the line BMW laser lights, but to be honest, I don't think it's any brighter than the regular LEDs from other brands. It's only when you're in a pitch black area and you're putting on high beam where you can see the small difference, and BMW says this has a light throw of over 600 meters. I don't think you can even see that far forward. The X7 is fitted with the Design Pure Excellence package as standard here in Malaysia, and that is the complete polar opposite from the M Sport kit fitted on the X5. Now this layers on as much chrome as possible around the car, especially on this hockey stick pattern over there, again designed to draw connections with the 7 series. At the bottom here are massive 21-inch alloy wheels with matching 285/45 run flat tires. The tire and wheel combo is 50mm wider in terms of diameter compared to the X5, again to fit this car's larger proportions. Around the back, the X7 has a much more boxy shape compared to the X5, and that is to maximize the interior space, which we'll get to in a minute. Just like the front, this car comes with this really wide and slim taillight clusters, and this thick chrome line is lifted off directly from the 7 Series, again to emphasize the car's width. Now let's check out the interior. But while BMW has gone to great lengths to differentiate the X7 and X5 on the outside, they just haven't bothered at all with the inside over here, because this is nearly identical to what you'd find in the X5. Especially when your car is pushing 1 million ringgit here in Malaysia, I would expect a much nicer, much more special feeling interior, which this car just doesn't deliver. The differences to the X5 are just very small, minor things. Number one is this horizontal line, which, to be honest, unless you put the car side by side, you just wouldn't notice it at all. A bigger difference is the glass inserts over here, which BMW calls the crafted clarity glass option. This includes glass ornaments fitted on the gear lever, the start button, the iDrive controller, and even the volume knob over there. The main highlight is, of course, this fully glass or crystal gear lever, which I think is much nicer than what you'd find in a Volvo XC90. I especially like the nice lit X symbol within the crystal over here, which lights up nicely at night. What's not so great is that this, even though it's supposed to be handcrafted, it's a little bit sharp to touch, especially around this park button over here. Other differences to the X5 include these silver window controls compared to the plain black ones in the cheaper car. But beyond that, you're largely looking at the exact same cabin as on the X5, which, yeah, is just not good enough really. There are other differences, but this is more to do with how the BMW is specified here in Malaysia rather than more specific model changes. Number one, this is fitted with the BMW individual Alcantara headlining, which is very nice to the touch, and you also get the optional Sky Lounge package for the sunroof. Now this is very similar to what you get in the 7 Series, where you get 1,500 dots on the sunroof, and that will change color depending on what you set your ambient lighting to be. But unfortunately, you can't set the lighting to cycle through the colors like what you can do in Mercedes-Benz and Mini models, I guess because BMW thinks it's too serious and too mature for that kind of nonsense. You also get what BMW calls the comfort seat options for the front passengers, and this gives you a much wider array of adjustments compared to the basic seats on the X5, which don't even give you lumbar support adjustments. I especially like the fact that you can control the top of the seat independently of the seat angle, like that, so you can get a little bit more shoulder support if you want to, which is a very nice thing. But I still think the basic seats in the Volvo XC90 is just far more comfortable for longer journeys. Other than that, it's just the same as the X5. The sound system is Harman Kardon, which is not too bad, actually sounds pretty good, but it's not the top of the line Bowers & Wilkins system, which is available in some other markets. The top of the dashboard is fitted with SensorTech, which is BMW's artificial leather, while the seats are all covered in Vanesca leather, which is exactly the same as what you find in the base 3 Series. I would expect a flagship SUV like this to come with Napa leather or even BMW's Merino leather to make it feel a lot more special inside. But I guess it helps that the BMW X5 dashboard is pretty good all by itself. You get all the basic bits, which is very, very good in terms of build quality, and it's fairly practical as well. One small change with this being a CBU car is that you get the full Apple CarPlay wireless experience without having to pay extra for it in the long run. One small thing in the favor of the BMW is the ventilated seat function, which is standard on the X7. With this car being so big on the outside, you'd expect a huge interior, and this car absolutely delivers. There's loads of legroom, much more than what you get in an X5, and headroom, just look at it, it's massive. The seats are very comfortable as well. It's very long with nice thigh support. All the seats are power adjustable. As you can see over here, you can slide it forward quite a fair bit to fit in adults in the back row, which we'll check out later in a bit. In front of you is a pair of screens where you can control your music, your navigation, and if you have an Android phone, you can even cast in your own videos to watch on the high definition screen. Down here, there's a built-in Blu-ray player for movies, and there's even a HDMI input for your, gaming consoles and whatnot. There's also 4 high-speed charging ports for all your gadgets. As for aircon, you get a dual-zone climate control system, although the B pillar vents are placed quite far down, so you don't get the nice breeze in your face kind of feel. One thing I don't like is the cheap plastics around the center housing over here, which really sticks out like a sore thumb in a car costing 900,000 ringgit. But what I do like are the extra toys given to the rear passengers. You can set your own powered rear blinds. You can even adjust the top sunroof cover from the back here. It's all pretty premium. Now onto the last row of seats. As you can see, it's not too bad. There's a decent amount of legroom, and headroom is not too bad unless you are particularly tall. But more than just the space available, this car doesn't make you feel like you've been banished to the cheap seats, because it does offer you quite a few unique things as well. You get your very own mini sunroof in the back here, which is very cute. There's also your own set of aircon controls in the back here for a full 5-zone climate control system for the entire car. Beyond that, you also get your own USB charging ports in the back here, and more crucially, there are 2 isofix points in the back here for a total of 4 in this entire car. So if you're looking for a big and spacious SUV for your whole family, it doesn't get much better than the BMW X7. One thing to note is that getting in and out of the third row is quite tricky because of the narrow passageway, and the step getting into and getting out of the car is very high. The rear doors are also especially long, so you got to be really careful when swinging them open in tight parking lots. Just like the X5, this car comes with a split tailgate, so you can open up the boot even if you park right up against a wall, which you of course will have to given this car's length. A small difference to the X5 is that the lower tailgate is now fully lined in carpet, so you can sit on it more comfortably over a longer period of time, I guess. As for the boot itself, it's not too bad. Even in full 7-seater mode, you still have over 300 liters of space. Of course, if you fold the last row down, you get a humongous 750 liters of boot space, and if you fold all the seats down, you get over 2,000 liters of space. You can control every single one of the rear seats individually or all at once through all these small little buttons over here electrically, which is, I think, a nice touch. You also get individual tonneau covers for both 7-seater and 5-seater modes, and when not in use, you can just store them underneath the boot floor. It's very convenient actually. So clearly this is a very spacious and practical car, but one thing that's missing is any forms of hooks in the back boot here. So you have to put your things down on the floor for them to roll around, which I don't think is such a nice thing to do. So anyway, enough about the boring stuff, let's go drive this thing. The X7's entire driving experience is dominated by just how big and tall this car is. It's only available in one single variant in Malaysia, an xDrive40i, and as high as that sounds, in other markets that is actually the base engine option. So up front is a 3-litre turbocharged inline-6 engine, a BMW staple, and that makes 340 horsepower, 450 Newton meters of torque. That sounds very, very healthy indeed. But on the road, this car doesn't feel particularly fast because it's just so heavy and so tall, right? Even compared to the X5, this just feels a lot slower in comparison. Now in absolute weight, it's the X5 that is actually a bit heavier at 2.5 tons compared to this car at 2.3 tons, and that is to do with the batteries in that hybrid car. But as you drive, this car does not have the benefit of having an electric motor pushing you along at lower speeds and at lower RPM. So the actual result is that this car feels a little bit lethargic even despite all its headlining figures. Especially when you're going uphill with a few passengers on board, this car can feel a little bit laboured, like it's struggling going uphill. Well, not struggling so much as rather not so effortless as what you might expect from a car with a 3-litre turbocharged inline-6 engine. I think with a car this big and heavy, you need a V8 twin turbo to get that fully effortless driving feel. Things get a lot better on flat roads. This car's claimed to do 0 to 100 in just 6.1 seconds, but honestly it doesn't really feel like it's anywhere near as fast as that. I've timed it to around 6.5 seconds, but it feels even slower than that, really, to be honest. But then again, this is a big and comfortable luxury barge, so it's not the kind of car that you should be going balls out in anyway, right? And the same thing goes with this car's handling, because this car is very much tuned to offer more comfort than athleticism. BMW, of course, will inject as much of its dynamic character as it can, but even compared to the X5, this is a lot more focused to giving you extra comfort for the passengers rather than extra joy for the driver. And I think that is the right way to go for a car like this. Back to the drivetrain, this car comes with the usual BMW affair, an 8-speed automatic from ZF. And as usual, it's very smooth, it's very slick, and the response time is incredibly fast as well. There's a quick step on the throttle, doesn't matter what mode you're in, comfort, sport, whatever, and off you go like that. And as you rev the car higher up, you can hear the engine a little bit, and that's where the sweet sounding 6-cylinder engine starts to come in. And it's actually a quite nice sound to hear, even despite this car having perhaps a few 100 kilograms of sound deadening. Onto fuel consumption, this car is actually a lot better than you might think. This car has an 85-litre fuel tank, and with that I managed to get around 700 kilometers for an average of about 12 litres per 100 kilometers. Comparatively, that's quite close to what I got with the X5 hybrid. So yeah, this being a much bigger car with a non-hybrid powertrain, 12 litres per 100, that's not too bad really. And mind you, that was over the Merdeka weekend, so you can imagine the amount of slow-moving traffic I had to drive through. Now let's move on to handling, where I mentioned that this car is not very much focused on that. It's very much more targeted towards giving you extra comfort. And yeah, it rolls a lot through corners. Even though this car has full air suspension on 4 corners, it is very wallowy and very soft. There is a thing called Executive Drive Pro on this car, previously only exclusive to the BMW 7 Series. This is a form of an active anti-roll bar system that limits this car's body roll as you go through corners. But again, on the X7, I think BMW has tuned that system to again aid comfort rather than body roll, because body roll is still very much apparent even in sport mode. In comfort mode, it is downright nauseating. If you take it through a pair of corners with a few passengers on board, they will be complaining from the first minute or so. In sport, it still rolls a lot, but that is to be expected in a car this high and this tall. So yeah, in terms of handling, this car holds its own. It's probably better than the likes of the Volvo XC90 and whatnot, but it's no X5, it's no Porsche Cayenne, that's for sure. What this car excels in is comfort, this being the 7 Series of SUVs after all. So along highways, along normal city roads, along road bumps, this is beautiful. It absorbs most of the road bumps properly, and you don't feel that much through the driver's seat. Even in the last row, where it's usually very bouncy, in this car it's nice and planted. So as far as SUVs go, this is one of the more comfortable ones. It's just that because you're sitting so high up, you feel every single movement more in this car compared to say a regular sedan car, because you're just being rocked about so much more being this high up compared to a sedan where you're sitting so much lower, closer to the center of gravity of the car. So if you're comparing this car against the likes of the 7 Series or an S-Class, in terms of comfort, you'd still want to go for a regular sedan. It's just that exclusively in terms of SUVs, this is one of the best out there. Another aspect that this car is really good at is refinement. The X7 comes as standard with double glazing windows all around, and it is fantastic. You hardly hear any wind noise at all, and even through the roughest of roads, you hear just a tiny bit of roar from the tires. I've brought this car up to quite high speeds, and even then the wind noise were very much acceptable, very hushed inside. Another big highlight for the X7 is the inclusion of the entire suite of active driving assist functions, which is missing on pretty much most of BMW's range, including the X5. This here is my first taster of BMW's latest system, and I think it's fantastic. This is clearly one of the better systems out there. Its inputs are very clean and very smooth, and most of the time the steering inputs are done in one nice big arc, like a proper experienced driver. So you don't get these really rough jabbing movements with the steering wheel, like tugging along halfway through the corner. So yeah, even sitting in the back, this can be very comfortable. What's more impressive is the way this system reacts against traffic. This car will anticipate the movements of other cars rather than merely reacting to them. So the throttle inputs, the braking inputs are just so much smoother in that sense. You hardly ever get this car braking hard because another car has just cut into your lane. This car will do it in a much more gentle manner as to not disturb you too much with a quick change of direction and braking. And I think that is a big step forward for autonomous driving features. Anticipate rather than being reactive. That is fantastic. Once you felt how good the system is on the X7, you'll be cursing BMW for not putting this on the regular cars like the X5. It really is that good, and it elevates the driving experience to a much higher level, to a much more enjoyable level compared to the X5. The system also works on less than perfect road line markers on Malaysian roads, which of course happens quite a lot these days. The good thing is, even when the system thinks there's no clear road lines and it wants you to take control back, it does so by giving you audio warnings and small little lights that flashes at you so that you know you need to take back control of the car. Other systems like in the Volvo will just straight away lift off, and then if you're not paying attention, you could be in big trouble. So that's the BMW X7. Its looks may be controversial, but there's no denying it that it has mega road presence. It's also very decent to drive given its size, and the interior is absolutely massive, a big step up compared to the X5 and even the Volvo XC90. Having said that, I don't think it's particularly powerful, and the interior I would at least want a nicer leather upholstery for it to feel properly premium inside. So overall, at almost 900,000 ringgit, the X7 is a big ask. In terms of value, there's just no way you can justify buying this car at twice the price of an X5 when it's not that big of an upgrade. They share the same dashboard after all. But like I said at the start, this is a status symbol. When you think X5s are getting a bit too common on Malaysian roads, you get an X7. As simple as that. So what do you think of this car and this review? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching and stay safe, everyone.